Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of Fair Territory. We are live this morning, and we have little more than 5 weeks until the trade deadline. It is time for teams to start deciding who they are. And we're going to start off today talking about a number of teams that really probably don't know who they are just yet. I'm calling this division the meh division because these are teams that are just kind of slogging along. They're not that good. They're not that bad. They're okay. We're not going to include every possible team in this record range of where these teams are right around 500 for the most part, because we can't get to all of them, first of all. And some of them don't really apply here. The Red Sox are a team that's already made their big move. They're kind of going for it. The Guardians are a team that generally doesn't do much. Not too worried about them right now. If they sell, it's Carlos Santana. Okay, whatever. And then the Angels don't qualify for any playoff discussion until we see a lot more. But let's look at the teams in the Med division, and we'll go through these teams. And then at the end of this conversation, we'll get into a little Mets Phillies and Red Sox Giants. All right. Here is the meh division. Again, right around 500, all of them. The Reds, 40 and 38. The Diamondbacks, 39 and 38. Mariners, 39 and 37. Kansas City, 38 and 40. Are you sensing a theme? Texas, 38 and 40. Minnesota, 37 and 40. And a team that probably doesn't even belong in this grouping. Not good enough, but we'll talk about them. The Atlanta Braves at 35 and 41. We'll start with the Reds because to me, they are quite an interesting team. They've brought in Terry Francona. They've invested in this club. They want to win. And tomorrow night, we're going to see, after only 13 minor league starts, their top pitching prospect, Chase Burns, a guy who was the second overall pick in the draft last year, he's going to make his debut against the Yankees. You see him right there. Now, this is a team that, in my view, and in the view of a number of executives that I've spoken to, could be aggressive at the deadline simply because they've tried to do some things. So the Reds are a team to watch, perhaps on the buy side. The Diamondbacks, kind of the opposite. Now, they're 3.5 back in the wild card. They're a team that has lost so much to injuries. Corbin Burns and Justin Martinez and AJ Puck, these guys are all down for the season. Gabriel Moreno currently on the injured list. They just signed James McCann. He's going to join them. They had lost another backup catcher as well. So they're a team that you've heard Mike Hazen, their general manager, speak. They want to go for it. They want to buy. I just wonder if by the deadline they'll still be in position where they say, okay, we're still good enough to go grab a wild card and maybe get hot. I'm not seeing it, but cheers to them for not just conceding and saying, hey, let's get rid of Merrill Kelly and Zach Gowen and Josh Naylor. No, they're trying and they're playing okay still. The Mariners. Now, here's a team that over the weekend got Logan Gilbert back finally. The rotation is mostly intact now, except for Bryce Miller, who is on the IL. They are a team that has not pitched as well as we normally would expect, yet they've hit better than they normally do. This is a team that offensively isn't usually very good. They're 13th, though, in runs per game. Pretty good, above average right now, in large part because of Cal Raleigh. So if you're the Mariners, you're having this magical season from Raleigh, maybe one of the great seasons by a catcher in Major League history. You don't want it to go to waste. We know what they need. First baseman, most logically. They DFA'd Rowdy Tellez recently. We'll see how aggressive they are and how they play over the next 5 or so weeks. The Royals and the Rangers. These are two teams that are quite similar. Great pitching, awful hitting. The Royals have been looking for an outfield bat going back to the offseason. That's when, of course, they pursued Anthony Santander. They still need that. Caglianone's an interesting guy, and we'll see if he can contribute the way Nick Kurtz has started to contribute with Sacramento. And they have, of course, Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez and Pasquantino, the core of a good offense. I would throw Michael Garcia in there as well, but they need more. And all this wishful thinking about them trading Seth Lugo, I don't see that happening. This is a team that is going for it. Barring a collapse, they're going to continue to go for it. The Rangers, I cannot figure out. Entering yesterday, they were 26th in runs per game and second in ERA. They're dealing with some injuries right now. The two offseason acquisitions, Jake Berger and Jock Peterson, both on the injured list. And then you have on the pitching side, Eovaldi's still out, Bradford's still out, Tyler Mahle. They need those guys back, and they need to somehow get it going offensively, especially at home, where they have not been a very productive offensive club. I don't expect the Rangers to concede easily, and even if they do, I don't know how much they would have necessarily to sell. But this is a team that has been so far a huge disappointment. All right, finally, two other clubs to discuss. And this one might be the most intriguing of all, the Minnesota Twins. What has happened to the Twins? If you've noticed over the last, I don't know, 2.5 weeks or so, they've kind of fallen apart. And this all coincides with Pablo Lopez going on the injured list. They've lost 13 of 17. And in in 7 of the 17 games, they've given up 9 or more runs. It's astonishing. Their pitching has fallen apart. They're giving up an average of 7.5 runs per game in that time. They've got some interesting pitching to deal if they're willing to do it. Guys like Joe Ryan, Yon Duran, Griffin Jacks, they all have 2 years beyond this one. They would have extreme value in the market. The Twins are for sale. How will that affect them? Who knows? But this is a team to watch over the next coming weeks. Rocco Baldelli, if you remember, was on the hot seat earlier this year. I don't know that you can put him on the hot seat for all this, but I would be surprised right now if they're not taking another look and saying, okay, where are we going here? Not just with Rocco, but with the team in general. And finally, the Braves. The Braves last week played the Mets really tough. They had lined up Schwellenbach, Sale, and Strider. They had a good series against the Mets, and what happens? Sale gets the fractured rib cage, and now you look at them. They're 35 and 41. They are well out of it in the wild card race. I believe this margin is 7.5 games right now. It's difficult to imagine them being a playoff team without Sale for a while, however long it's going to be. So I don't know exactly how this is going to go for them. Alex Anthopoulos has not generally sold. I don't expect him to sell. He already had announced before the Sale injury, and now the point is moot, that he wasn't trading Chris Sale. There'll be a question about whether he would trade Sean Murphy, the catcher. Murphy's on a good contract. It's not kind of how the Braves roll. They like having two everyday type catchers, Drake Baldwin, the rookie, of course, being the other right now. So the Braves are in a funny spot. Can they compete and get back into a competitive position? I don't know. Albie's been terrible. Michael Harris II, terrible offensively with both guys. They could sell Ozuna at the deadline if they want and get something for him. But this is going to be a fascinating team to watch too, because they simply have not looked like the Braves of old, to say it mildly. And this week, they play the Mets. It's a huge series for them, obviously, if they want to get back to 500, get back to a place where they're doing better. But right now, it is not happening for them. All right, so that is it, the Med Division. And again, it's not complete. I might not have every team. Don't hit me with your whatabouts. These are the teams I was talking about today, the teams I picked, teams that are kind of in this funny place when it comes to the deadline, which again is more than 5 weeks away. All right, two really interesting series over the weekend as well. Mets Phillies, that was one. I was there Saturday in Philadelphia for the middle game of that series. Each of the games in this series was kind of a blowout. Phillies won the first one 10-2. Mets won the second 11-4. Phillies won last night 7-1. Great performance by Luzardo. They did some good things offensively in this series. But with this series and the next one I'm going to talk about, this decides nothing. Absolutely nothing. The Phillies going into this, they were 2-10 for a while there. Remember, they had a 2-10 run. Now they're 9-2. Since then, they've played much better, even without Bryce Harper, who could be returning this week. So good for the Phillies. They seem to have straightened it out. They are a team with a powerhouse rotation. Incredible depth that they have. They may be in position to trade a starter. Not talking about one of the big ones, the veterans, but maybe Mick Abel, the kid. They may be in position to use one of those starters in the bullpen going forward. Who knows? Andrew Painter is coming. They're really interesting from that perspective. Obviously, they need bullpen help, maybe a right-handed hitting center fielder as well. Mets kind of in an opposite spot right now. They're starting pitching, which was so good for 2.5 months, kind of in a funny place. Senga is on the IL, McGill on the IL, and they just have not been the same type of rotation. Minaya is one start away from coming back on his rehabilitation assignment. Montas is coming back tomorrow. Who knows what that's going to look like? He had a 13 ERA in AAA. So the Mets have got to figure out their rotation. And as Will Salmon writes today in The Athletic, maybe get another infielder as well. All right, so that's Mets Phillies. The other interesting series, again, another series that decided nothing but was quite fascinating for many perspectives, was Red Sox Giants. And it was Rafael Devers against the Red Sox. The Giants win 2 of 3. Good performance by them. It looks like Devers might have the same kind of effect on their offense that Kyle Tucker did on the Cubs. Kind of makes everyone around them better. And I've seen some chatter online from Red Sox fans how we're sick of talking about the Devers trade. Well, guess what? We're going to be talking about the Devers trade for a long time for a lot of reasons. One, to see how Rafael Devers performs, how he ages in this contract. That was obviously a concern. And two, to see how the Red Sox reinvest the money that they saved when they shipped, I don't know, 250 million remaining or so over to the San Francisco Giants. I expect that we're going to see the president of baseball operations, Craig Breslow, active at the deadline with some of those savings. It's kind of the point, right? They're going for it. And Breslow has said, listen, wait to see what we've got. So the Red Sox are a work in progress. The Giants, too, are a work in progress. Could use another bat. The Devers trade is something we'll talk about, like the Mookie Betts trade, for quite some time. So there you have it. The Med Division, the two most interesting series of the weekend. And we'll be right back after this with the Inside Dish.
FT fam, did you know that Huel has sold over 500 million meals around the world, and now it is your turn to try it while I drink it.
Drink up, Scott, so I can discuss Huel and how I love it. I had some for breakfast this morning. I like to drink it post-workout because of the protein included in it. It always tastes delicious, whether it's strawberry, banana, chocolate, vanilla, whatever the flavor is. It tastes like a dessert, honestly. It should not taste as good as it does.
I agree. New customers get 15% off plus a free gift at Huel.com when you use the FT code. That is FOUL, F-O-U-L, at Huel.com/FOUL. Don't miss out. Try Huel today for a perfectly balanced meal. If you miss a meal, if you're looking for a little protein boost, you just saw me drinking the Black Edition ready to drink. There's the vanilla flavor. I love what the chocolate brings to the table. It's really damn good. So give it a shot, FT fam. 15% off plus a free gift for new customers with the code FOUL.
Time now for the Inside Dish, the part of the show where I talk about maybe a story I've written, a trend in the game, something else going on. And this week I've got really something incredibly sad to discuss. And you might have seen over the weekend, we lost Scott Miller, one of the great baseball writers of our time. He passed away Saturday, pancreatic cancer. It's something we was dealing with for some time. He was 62. And this was a big shock to a lot of people because Scott had kept this quiet. Very few of us knew. And even the ones who did, we always saw him as so relentlessly optimistic, even with this horrible disease. And he was that way pretty much to the end. Now, you might have seen Scott recently. He came out with a book, Skipper, Why Managers Matter and Always Will, on May 13th. The next day, he was on foul territory. That was May 14th. And this was, I don't know, just over a month ago. And Scott had covered A.J. Przinsky as a player for the St. Paul Pioneer Press. And I remember texting Scott before he went on FT, and I said, Scott, you know A.J. doesn't read. And Scott kind of laughed. We were just texting back and forth. And he said, oh, I never thought A.J. could read, even when I had him as a rookie with the Twins. We had a good laugh over that. Now, you saw the outpouring from baseball writers on X Saturday after hearing this news. It was one baseball writer after another mentioning how much this hurt, how much we all love Scott, how he was always just so generous and upbeat and kind. Now, baseball writing, the community is very close. And yeah, we're competitive. But it's the kind of business, like a lot of businesses, that really the only people who understand what's involved are the people who are in it. And in baseball writing, what is different about what we do? Well, the hours, the deadlines, the travel, the noise because it's public, the noise from readers, the noise from editors, the noise from players and managers and executives we cover. It's kind of an unusual job, especially with the amount that people work. And those who do the job over the years, as competitive as they might be, there's a bond that forms. And that's pretty much all of us. There were a couple of outliers that maybe you don't want to talk to, but pretty much we're all, if not friends, certainly having mutual respect for one another. And there's a photo of Scott, second from the left there, with me and Jim Leland and Tim Brown. Tim, now retired as a daily writer, still writes books, wrote the book with Eric Kratz. That's from the 2015 World Series. So I wasn't as close with Scott as some other writers. Bob Nightingale and him were like brothers. Jason Stark and Jerry Krasnick. Jerry used to work for ESPN, now works for the Players Association. Also very close with Scott, but certainly Scott and I were friends. We kept in touch over the years. And Scott recalled this, and I didn't, but 2001 World Series, the Jeter home run off Byung-Hyun Kim, the one that made him Mr. November, the extra inning walk-off. We were together in the press box at the old Yankee Stadium. And you saw that photo from the 2015 World Series. There were various moments like these over the years, all these moments, all these crazy games, and all these good times. And I mentioned on X, going back to 1996, I mentioned that Buster Olney that year was the Orioles beat writer. I was the columnist for the Baltimore Sun. We worked together. And Buster left for the New York Times. And at that point, obviously, the Baltimore Sun had to hire a replacement. Scott Miller and Joe Strauss were the finalists for the job. And Scott Miller was a guy that Buster favored. Buster really liked him. I've liked him too, of course. But I thought at the time, Joe was the better choice. And I'll explain why in a minute. Now, we weren't the ones making the decision, obviously, but we would talk to the editors. We'd express our opinion. Now, the reason I favored Joe is actually a testament to Scott. Because at the time, the Orioles were chaotic. Peter Angelos was meddling. The team had a lot of big personalities. There was a lot going on. I thought we needed a beat writer who was kind of relentlessly cynical, who would not take anything at face value, who would just always keep going after this team, be a real digger. And Joe, that was him exactly. And when we lost Joe in 2015, he also passed away from cancer, and he was a great beat writer in Atlanta, in Baltimore, in St. Louis. I wrote about Joe, and I wrote that he was the kind of reporter who would sense both a left-wing and right-wing conspiracy at the mere mention of a strained hamstring. That was Joe Strauss, and ultimately, we did hire him. Now, Scott was the guy that you saw described on X, the guy that was just an incredibly nice and decent person. Now, I don't want this taken wrong. Scott was not soft in any way. In fact, he wrote a number of stories over the years that were incredibly probing and nuanced, and stories that had an edge. His book, the one that just came out that I highly recommend, it has an edge. It has a point of view. It's about how managers are getting kind of diminished in today's game and that they shouldn't be. So the way Scott went about it was different than the way Joe went about it, and Joe was maybe a better fit at the time, at least in my opinion. I might have been wrong about that. Scott went on to great things, of course. Bleacher Report and CBS Sportsline, actually CBS Sportsline, then Bleacher Report, and then the New York Times, and then, of course, writing a couple of books as well. And years later, after all this went down, it must have been about 20 years, I carried a little bit of guilt with it because I know I had recommended Joe, and Scott was my friend too. I felt badly about it. And I eventually told Scott. And by this time, Scott was well on his way to being one of the most distinguished writers of our time. And he kind of laughed. And we just kind of had a good discussion about it. It's not the kind of thing where he held a grudge or should have held a grudge. Everything turned out fine. All of our paths, our careers take these unexpected turns. And you do your best to just keep going. And Scott did that, and he did it in a remarkable way. And he forged a path that was his own and uniquely his own. And again, he wrote some things, and Tyler Kepner, his former teammate at the New York Times, basically tweeted his whole archive from the Times if you want to go look at it. He wrote some really great things. So, as you saw, he was one of the most universally admired and respected writers in our business. He was universally well-liked, hard to do in any walk of life. So, as I said on Fox on Saturday, our hearts go out to his wife, Kim, and his daughter, Gretchen. And Scott, man, we love you, brother. We'll be back after this with Grillin Ken.
If you're a card collector, even if you're not, and you just want to find a new way to collect, Arena Club is the spot. AJ just opened up a slab pack. He screen recorded on his phone so you can all see what he just experienced. Take us through it.
It was simple. I just clicked on which slab pack I wanted, clicked buy now, boom, bought it. Card little pack starts spinning. You hit open, and then it goes all psychedelic on you. It gets a little funky. And then the card appears, and I got a Robin Yount rookie card.
Yeah,
it's
you
pretty
did.
Awesome.
And then right after that experience, I saw the little buyback, and you said, nah, I'm going to hold on to this for now.
I'm going to hold on to this. Robin Yount's in the Hall of Fame. He's not getting any more rookie cards, so I'm going to stick with it for a little bit and see if the price might start going up a little bit.
Yep, you can track that. And, of course, if you do want to do the buyback, then you can instantly sell it right back to Arena Club, get yourself another slab pack, buy a card, whatever it is. This is the spot for collectors these days. And you can use the code FOUL, F-O-U-L, to get yourself 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase at arenaclub.com/foul.
BetMGM is giving you the chance to win a prize every day during the baseball season. Step into the batter's box for BetMGM's Swing for the Fences free-to-play game. Visit the BetMGM app to access the game, and you'll score a prize if you hit a single, double, triple, or home run. Strikeout? No problem. Try again tomorrow. Gambling problem or concern? There is help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, time now for Grillin Ken. And like last week, we're also taking questions from BCC. That would be Chat BCC. It's a free chat app. Go to foulterritory.chat. It's totally free and join the conversation. All right, let's get to your questions. We've got some good ones. Here we go. Brad Barber asks, which division leader has the easiest path to their division crown? Brad, I don't normally say this, but I think this is pretty easy. And it's pretty easy because the Detroit Tigers have an 8.5 game lead in the American League Central. And I ask you out there, which team is going to catch them? I know the Tigers had a tough weekend against the Rays, but my goodness, the Twins are falling apart. The Guardians, they're just kind of drifting along here. The White Sox are the White Sox, and the Royals just have not played to their capability. So I would say for sure it's the Tigers that have the easiest path. The Cubs are in a good position in the NL Central, and we all expect the Dodgers to win the National League West, but the Tigers have sprinted out, and I don't expect anything different to happen in the AL Central to make them, I don't know, a second-place team. All right, next question. This one comes from, oh my goodness, Eric Kratz. Eric, who asks, does Ken know if the balls are different this year? Now, Eric, I often tease AJ Przinsky for not reading what I write. I just accept it at this point. He's not going to read anything I write. I often tease him for not reading at all. And in this case, we had a story in The Athletic a couple of weeks ago, not by me, by Enos Saris and Evan Drellick, in which they clearly demonstrated that the ball is different, that it's not traveling quite as far, not traveling the same way. There's more drag. Major League Baseball confirmed this. So, Eric, you know the answer to my question. If you just wanted to get on the show, that's cool. And we welcome you to the show, Eric. But you know the answer. Read The Athletic. All right, next question. Let's get to it. See what we have here. This one comes from Eitan Hain, who asks, could you see the Rangers trading Corey Seager like the Red Sox did with Devers? He has 6 years, $186 million remaining. So the number of teams that might want him is small. Curious your thoughts. Eitan, I had not looked at it like that, in the sense that, well, if the Red Sox could do this with Devers, maybe the Rangers could do this with Seager. I don't know that they would. I don't know that they would even consider it. Remember, they won a World Series just 2 years ago with Corey Seager, a huge part of what they were doing. And also, in the Red Sox case with Devers, the one positive part for the Red Sox here was they simply did not dump the money. That wasn't all they accomplished here. They got back pieces. And the two best pieces, Kyle Harrison, who could be a solid starter for years to come, 6 years control, and the prospect, the outfield prospect, James Tibbs. I don't know that the Rangers could do that, get rid of Seager's money, and get that kind of return. The Red Sox, in their case, had a willing taker. It made sense for the Giants. They could not get a big slugger any other way. I don't know if things will line up just the same way that it did for the Red Sox and Giants in this trade. So Seager is interesting. We can go through a list of teams that would need Seager. He has a no trade. He would have to approve it. I just don't see it happening. Again, I see the Rangers wanting to get back into this thing. Whether they can or not, I have no idea. But they are not going to concede easily. And in this expanded world we live in, with the postseason being expanded, the world's the same size as it's always been. With an expanded postseason, it's very difficult for teams to concede and say, hey, our season's over. You do that if you trade Corey Seager. All right, I want to thank everyone for their questions. Thank you for watching, for listening. We will be back Thursday, our normal live show on Thursday, 12:30 Eastern. Myself, Alana Rizzo. Have a great week, everyone. Some big series on tap. Cubs, Cardinals, Mets, Braves. Let's go.